Rafael Nadal has unexpectedly abandoned his retirement, sending shockwaves through the tennis world. Music. At the center of this surprising return is Alex Eala, a young player he once privately coached on a practice court in Mallorca, who has now become the reason the greatest clay champion alive cannot stay away from the sport. For 14 months, the most decorated competitor tennis has ever seen lived in quiet obscurity before being drawn back by the remarkable potential of this extraordinary young woman. His 22 Grand Slam trophies remain displayed in a cabinet, while a fresh surgical scar marks his wrist. Meanwhile, his wife Cisco, Music the fiercely private partner, who stood silently beside him through 2 decades of one of the most intense careers in sports history, now faces a reality no one imagined when Nadal tearfully retired in Málaga in November 2024. Music. On November 19th, 2024 at the Martin Carpena Arena in Málaga, Spain, the crowd held its breath as Nadal stepped onto a tennis court for what was supposed to be the final time in his professional career. When the opening notes of Maril, Spain's national anthem, echoed through the arena, Music, the 1,000-mile stare that had defined his legendary focus, finally broke. Those eyes had endured 23 years of fierce competition, 14 Roland Garros titles, chronic hip pain, multiple wrist surgeries, music, and a body that repeatedly challenged one of the strongest wills in sports. His farewell had been years in the making. Back in May 2023, during Music, a press conference at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, the very place that would later become his bridge back into professional tennis, he delivered a statement that resonated throughout the sporting music world. Even when the mind wants to continue, the body sometimes says it can go no further. Rafael Nadal had carefully built his retirement life long before leaving the sport. Tennis Mize in Mallorca, Mexico, Greece, Music Kuwait, Hong Kong, and Egypt continued spreading his training philosophy around the world. At the same Music time, restaurants in Madrid, Ibiza, and Valencia occupied his growing business music interests, while real estate ventures, hotel investments, and renewable energy portfolios formed the foundation of his life after tennis. This entire structure of a post-tennis existence had been quietly assembled over many years. It's built alongside his playing career like a parallel world, waiting for the moment he would step into it. Music. When he officially announced his retirement in a personal video on October 10th, 2024, he included a statement that would later take on unexpected meaning. "I just need to organize my life now. I don't see myself in any project like this. But I don't know how life is going to be in 1, 2, or 3 years." After that, he stepped into a quieter life in Mallorca with his wife, Sisca Maria Franciscoca Pello, the CEO of the Rafa Nadal Foundation. Their relationship had begun when they met through his sister at the age of 17, growing into a love story that lasted 14 years before he proposed to her in Rome. Together, they were raising their son, Rafael Jr., born in October 2022, and their second child, Miguel, born in August 2025. Music for the first time in his life, the champion who had spent decades in relentless motion tried to experience stillness. Then in December 2025, 1 year after his emotional Davis Cup farewell, he agreed to return briefly to the court to hit with Alex Eala. Nadal joked about the session, saying it came with one condition: "If I don't have to run, that's music fine." He told Movie Star Plus with his familiar self-deprecating humor. Music. The practice lasted just 45 minutes, but afterward he posted a video on Instagram with a caption that carried surprising weight. 1 year later, Music felt great to be back on a tennis court. "It was great to practice with you, Alex." Music. "Next time I will be stronger." Those final words, "next time I will be stronger," did not sound like the thoughts of a retired man peacefully watching the sport from afar. They sounded like the voice of a competitor whose dormant engine had just restarted, and everyone around him could feel the vibration immediately. What happened next did not remain quiet for long. To understand why Rafael Nadal cannot fully detach from Alex Eala, you have to go back several years, long before the headlines currently dominating the tennis world. Music. Eala first arrived at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor in 2018 as a 13-year-old girl from Quezon City, Philippines. Separated from her family by thousands of kilometers after earning a scholarship by winning the prestigious Les Patis as junior tournament. Her mother, Rosemary, a former SEA Games bronze medalist in swimming, and her brother Michael, who would later play college tennis at Penn State, supported the difficult family decision to send her to Spain to train in one of the most demanding development environments in tennis. The sacrifice behind that decision was immense. Music inside the academy, Nadal's presence shaped everything, even when he was not physically there. His uncle Tony Nadal, the mastermind behind 14 of Nadal's 22 Grand Slam titles, served as the academy's guiding spirit. While coaches like Joan Bosch and Alejandro Vélez embedded Nadal's philosophy into every training session, tactical briefing, and match preparation, Eala experienced over 7 formative years. Music. Yet, the moment that truly defined their connection came unexpectedly. Joan Bosch, who once coached Carlos Moya during Spain's 2004 Davis Cup triumph and later mentored Eala, recalled the scene in a Madrid interview. Nadal happened to be watching practice from above as Eala struggled with her serve, while Tony Nadal discussed music technical adjustments. Suddenly, without being asked, Nadal walked down to the court because, as Bosch described, he felt identified with the situation. He picked up a racket, demonstrated the serve himself, and ended up coaching Eala privately during an impromptu session that left her stunned. When he finished, Alex looked at me and said, "I can't believe it," Bosch recalled, adding that moments like that represent the unique experience of training at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Then came Miami in March 2025. Entering the tournament ranked 141st in the world with a wild card, Eala shocked the tennis world by defeating Grand Slam champion Yelena Ostapenko and reigning Australian Open winner Madison Keys, Music, and former world number 1 IG Swiatek in 3 consecutive straight-set victories. Music launching her to a career-high ranking of number 75. Nadal, watching from retirement, immediately congratulated her on social media, writing, "Music. Congratulations, Alex. Such a great victory for you and for the Philippines." Speaking afterward, Eala described him with deep admiration, saying, "Nadal had always been a major role model, not only for her, but for players everywhere, and that hearing her name mentioned alongside his was incredibly special." By the end of the year, she had won her first WTA title in Guadalajara, reached the final in Eastbourne, earned her first Grand Slam main draw victory at the US Open, Music, and broken into the top 50 rankings. She called 2025 the best year of my sporting life. The practice session with Nadal in December came right at the peak of her breakthrough Season 2 careers, one legendary and one rapidly rising, converging at the exact moment where transition met possibility. Somewhere within that 45-minute practice session, something shifted inside Rafael Nadal that retirement had not fully extinguished. The tennis world had already processed his departure with the solemnity it deserved. When BN Sports reported his firm statement in December 2025, it doesn't fit with my life in reference to the idea of coaching Carlos Alcaraz. It seemed the discussion was settled. Nadal had recently undergone additional wrist surgery and had clearly explained that the constant travel required for coaching conflicted with his priorities. As he put it, life is constantly changing, especially when you have young children. You see life one way, a few years go by and it changes. Those children had become the central factor in his decisions. His son, Rafael, Music Jr., was approaching his 3rd birthday. while baby Miguel had been born only months earlier in August 2025. Throughout that year, Nadal had been supporting his wife Cisa during her second pregnancy, while adjusting to life with a newborn and experiencing the unfamiliar reality of life after professional competition for the first time in more than 2 decades. No one within his inner circle believed he would soon commit to any structured coaching role. Music Chiyastian. He had stated his position clearly on multiple occasions. Even his former coach Carlos Moya, who became unemployed after Nadal's retirement publicly, said he had no intention of coaching another professional player, explaining that he wanted to spend time with his family after so many years traveling the world. Yet, that December practice session produced something neither Nadal nor his team had anticipated. Physical contact with tennis competition, even informal, even jokingly limited to minimal running, reignited something that no amount of business ventures, restaurant management, or real estate investments had been able to replace. Music. His Instagram caption was not casual, and his promise about being stronger next time was not a throwaway line. It reflected a genuine inner response that someone with Nadal's competitive mindset could neither fake nor ignore. At the same time, Ya's management team was facing its own turning point. The coaching structure that had guided her development for years through academy mentors, Joan Bosch, Alejandro Velez, and Music Daniel Gomez, had accomplished its purpose brilliantly. However, the next music phase of her career required something different. A player ranked in the world's top 50 and competing regularly in Grand Slam tournaments must manage the psychological pressure of rising expectations while navigating the tactical complexity of consistent elite competition. That level demands guidance operating on an entirely different frequency. Joan Bosch himself, speaking during a Madrid Open interview, described Aya as a special project that reflected the philosophy of the Rafa Nadal Academy, while also acknowledging that her rise had come far more quickly than anyone involved originally expected. Then when conversations quietly began between Nadal's team and Ya's management, they were handled with caution and full awareness of the many complications such an arrangement could create. Publicly, no one suggested it was inevitable. Privately, however, those close to the situation recognized that the paths of these two careers had been slowly bending toward each other since 2018. Music and that Ya's breakthrough in Miami had simply accelerated a connection already embedded in their shared history. Music. What no one fully anticipated was the reaction of the one person whose opinion mattered more than anyone else's, Maria Francisco Perello. Music for nearly 2 decades, she had carefully and deliberately lived a life beside immense global attention, without allowing herself to be consumed by it. Years before their marriage, she told The Telegraph that Nadal needed his space when he was competing, adding that even the thought of spending her days simply waiting around for his needs would exhaust her. That statement, delivered without apology or performance, perfectly defined the structure of their relationship. Maria Franciscosa Zisca Perello never orbited around Rafael Nadal. She lived alongside him, maintaining her own professional identity as the CEO of the Rafa Nadal Foundation, an organization dedicated to improving children's lives through sport and education in Spain and India. Their partnership was built on genuine equality rather than the traditional image of a tennis spouse living in the background. She attended Nadal's farewell in Malaga with her usual quiet presence, music, bringing their son Rafael Jr. He dressed in pale green chinos and cream sneakers. Music, a toddler completely unaware of the historic moment unfolding around him. Music, as always, she remained the private constant in Nadal's life, neither dominating the moment nor absent music from it. When Nadal delivered his emotional tribute at Roland Garros in May 2025, the farewell ceremony he said he deserved. After feeling that the Davis Cup press conference had been too abrupt, He addressed her with a warm chuckle that reflected the deep familiarity of two people who had grown together for 2 decades. "We couldn't have imagined we'd be here 20 years later," he told the crowd at court. Philippe Chatrier music now, with baby Miguel only months old and Rafael Jr. still a toddler. The possibility of Nadal returning to the demanding world of professional tennis with its travel, high intensity, music, and psychological pressure presented. Zisa with a difficult balance between the life they had planned and the competitive nature of the man she married. Music. Her views were never expressed through headlines or public statements. Like everything in their relationship, they remained music part of a private conversation built over 20 years together. Yet those close to the Nadal family understood the stakes clearly. Nadal himself had previously told the world that coaching does not fit into my life right now. A statement that reflected not just professional reasoning, but family priorities. Reconsidering that position placed Zisa at the center of a decision the public could only speculate about. For a man who had spent his career acknowledging her sacrifices, the question now was whether one more chapter remained not for his own glory, but for a 20-year-old player from the Philippines whose journey reminded him why he had devoted his life to tennis in the first place. The question lingering beneath the headlines was simple but profound. What does a woman who has already sacrificed so much say when the man she loves asks for one more sacrifice? Music. And yet what the dramatic headlines missed was the reality shown by the verified record. Rafael Nadal never truly abandoned tennis in the music first place. Rafael Nadal never publicly announced a formal or structured coaching commitment to Alexia. Music instead, what actually unfolded based on documented accounts from multiple credible sources, was a gradual, organic, and deeply personal mentorship that grew naturally from their connection at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Their relationship, rooted in the Academy's early years of Ya's development, intensified after her historic breakthrough in Miami and became more visible following their December 2025 practice session. From there, it evolved into an arrangement whose exact professional definition remained intentionally undefined. Nadal himself consistently spoke in careful terms about the future. In December 2025, he said, "I've always had the utmost respect for what might happen in the future because what you feel today isn't necessarily what you'll feel later." Speaking in Jeddah, he added, "You never say never. I don't know how life is going to be in 1, 2, or 3 years." After their practice session, he posted on Instagram, "Next time I will be stronger," and later told Movie Star Plus simply, "I was happy to do it." Individually, each of these comments maintained distance from any official coaching declaration, but together they formed a clear picture of a retired champion whose connection with one particular young player extended beyond the boundaries he had publicly drawn for his post-tennis music life. The Academy itself offered perhaps the clearest interpretation, describing their December session as one of its music most special days. The institution highlighted Ya as one of the standout rising players in women's tennis and framed the Nadal-A relationship as part of the Academy's living legacy, not merely a historical connection, but an active bond between its founder and one of its most promising students. A herself spoke about the experience with awe, describing the opportunity to train with Nadal as something many young players could only dream of, and emphasizing the valuable technical advice he shared during their session. She did not portray it as a retired legend, casually donating 45 minutes of his time, but as a mentor genuinely invested in passing on knowledge with real attention and care. Regarding the possibility of formal coaching, Nadal's own words perhaps explained it best. "In this life, you can never say never. It's difficult to imagine myself now doing this kind of thing, but I don't know how life is going to be." By leaving the future open, he acknowledged something he had learned over 23 years of competition. that the word finished often carries an asterisk, and Ziska, the woman who stood beside him through every injury, comeback, and farewell, music understood that truth about him long before the rest of the world did. When all the dramatic headlines are stripped away, when the speculation, viral posts, and exaggerated narratives are removed, what remains is a genuinely remarkable story grounded in documented facts. A man who music won 14 Roland Garros titles, watched a young player trained within his own institution walk onto the Miami court and defeat the very player who symbolically occupies his territory in the modern women's game. Music, a champion who had once attended Alex Eala's graduation from the Rafael Nadal Academy as a keynote guest, personally invited by Nadal himself. Music, that symbolic chain from academy student to professional contender, came full circle when Eala, entering Miami as a wildcard, defeated that same elite competitor on one of the sport's biggest music stages. Nadal observed from retirement, and then 1 year after his final professional match, stepped back onto a court beside her in Mallorca and publicly declared that next time he would return stronger. That narrative did not form by accident. It developed through 7 years of genuine investment built on the Academy's philosophy of discipline, music, intelligence, and authentic character. The very principles Nadal often described as the foundation of his own career. To Maria Franciscoca Zisa Perello, whose silence on professional matters has never meant absence, carries her own perspective within this music story. As the leader of the Rafa Nadal Foundation, an organization dedicated to transforming children's lives through sport, she understands perhaps better than anyone the inner conflict of a competitor like Nadal, trying to remain permanently inactive while a young athlete shaped by his own academy stands at a critical moment in her journey. Music. Their marriage endured more than 2 decades of the most demanding career in tennis, precisely because both understood the balance they had built together. She would never ask him to abandon the passion that defined him, and he would never place professional ambition above their family without thought. That quiet negotiation forms the invisible structure behind every decision he now makes. When Nadal previously declined to join Carlos Alcaraz's coaching team, he explained that he was in a different moment of his life, and at the time he truly was newly retired, adjusting to unfamiliar stillness, music, welcoming a second child, and rediscovering life beyond constant competition. Yet, months later, after a year of that stillness and a brief 45-minute practice session, reignited the competitive spark that had never fully disappeared. That moment began to shift again. Meanwhile, Ya, now inside the world's top 50 music, with her first WD title, her first Grand Slam victory, and her first major final run already achieved, stands at the exact point where the difference between a very good career and a historically significant one often comes down to guidance from someone who has already traveled that path. She described 2025 as the best year of her sporting.